Welcome back to the Print on Demand cast. And today's episode, we're going to talk about, do you have a POD hobby or a POD business? So let's get into it.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the POD cast, your place for top tier information about all things POD and the best dad jokes this side of the Mississippi. And that's just not me saying it. That's also Travis Ross saying it, who may be equally as biased, but take it for fact. The dad jokes are good. The information even better. Travis, good to see you again, man. I feel like it's been a while, just even personally, that I've actually seen you or spoken to you, because the last week and a half of my life has been a little nuts, but we're here. We're going to be talking about POD hobby or POD business. Which is it? Giving some people some things to think about. But before we do that, how are things going? We'll chop a little bit of waffles up here real quick. There's a lot to get to in this checklist, but just give us a quick recap of the last week. How you been? How's things going? And what are you looking forward to most about today's show? How about that? That's a new question that I'll throw out in the waffle section.
Yeah, I missed you on the waffles. I didn't have any waffle last week. I just went right into the interview. But yeah, I'm excited about this week's episode. I think, yeah, we'll get into the why, but I think it's a good question to ask. It's kind of a in your face question, you know. But it could also be encouragement to you. So hopefully, you'll take it as the latter, as opposed to a punch in the face. I don't want to punch our listeners in the face. That would be bad. But yeah, my week's been going good. Things, just had a good week. Doing some new things with some clients we're actually bringing on, and going to help them list stuff on Amazon and doing some things like that, as well as just, kind of the day-to-day order here, order there. And then, just doing kind of the same old thing, but adding a few new pieces. Oh, I did launch my Shopify store for Father's Day. I'm starting to advertise. Nice. I haven't really seen much traction on that yet. But hopefully as the Father's Day actually approaches, people will kind of get off their butts and actually press add to cart. So here's crossing fingers, I mean, it did really good towards the end, towards Christmas and all that last year. So I'm hoping that the fathers will, or the lovers of fathers,
lovers,
weird.
Father
Lovers,
loving son of a.
Exactly.
If you're offended by that joke, I completely agree.
So that's funny. That's great. Yeah, well, hopefully that works well, man. I know, like you said, that same idea last year towards the end of the year went really well. So looking forward to it. Looking forward to this week's episode as well. Just kind of talking about that difference that we're talking about, just so you the listener knows either where you are at actually, and if you're wanting to make it a business, what you have to do to get there. So like Travis said, no need to feel like we're trying to, I don't know, give you a cheap shot or a shot in the yam bag or a punch in the face. I don't know why I said yam bag just then, but I said it.
Yam bag. Never mind. I'm not asking.
You know what it is. So, all right, yeah, we're going to get into that. But before we do, we're going to go to everyone's favorite segment right now, this week's weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
All right, Travis, I'm going to throw it to you.
All right. People are usually shocked when I tell them I have a police record, but I honestly just love their greatest hits.
Nice. And for the younger people who don't know who the police are, Google it.
Shame on you.
Hold on. The music group. Don't just Google police. But you can just Google it. Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to move straight in. Like I said, a lot of stuff to cover this week. We're not even going to hit a bumper for the point of interest. I know everyone's favorite bumper probably is the soothing piano ballad, but we're just going to get right into the point of interest because, well, Travis, I guess in a manner of speak, there goes the neighborhood. Why? Because merch by Amazon, customizable apparel has arrived, ladies and gentlemen. It is here. Yes. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, which is printondemancast.com/YouTube, you see here on the screen the listing of doom, as it were. But Travis, talk to us a little bit about what's going on here, and maybe we can walk through the customizing process, and we can throw something on the shirt just so people know kind of how it works. But maybe get into the details of, first of all, how did we get here? I mean, we know how we got here. It's unfortunate, but talk us through the details, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah. So a buddy of mine, friend of the podcast, Jason Wilkie, actually shared this with me, and then I shared it with Uncle Mike, and so it's kind of made the rounds a little bit. Probably could have brought this to you guys a few weeks ago, but we've got just a lot of things. So this is a customizable merch by Amazon listing that Amazon themselves has put out. It's not a person's, it's not, some seller's listing. It's actually Amazon's. And so we're showing right here, it's a custom t-shirt. I'm guessing this is a unisex t-shirt, the same that you would kind of the standard t-shirt here. But if right there in the middle, you can kind of scroll through the different options that they have. They have like a V-neck and a tank top, and then they have a Bella canvas and a long sleeve shirt and even a raglan that you can, you can customize, and they're different prices. The unisex one is only $14.99 customized, which is pretty low compared to what a lot of people are charging, on other sites. I think the Bella is like $17.99, but once you get onto the page, you can choose your color. Obviously they have like men's, women's, they have kids, lots of different options for the kind of standard t-shirt, but you pick a fit type, and then a color, and then a size. And once you pick the size, you'll get a little box on the right that'll say customize now. And when you click that box, a whole nother window pops up, and you can again select your color, but you can add an image. You can upload one from your computer. And then once you do that, you can resize it. You can also do text. Like if you just wanted a text shirt, you can come here and just add your text, and just right there in the actual, the whole in that little window that pops up. Josiah's showing, a little print on demand. That's a transparent PNG, obviously, because there's no white t-shirt in the back, but it's our logo.
The other one was too small for them, so that's good to know.
Okay.
But in this case, you would just want to select maybe a white t-shirt. Might make me start all over again. Yeah,
you could do a white t-shirt, do the same thing. But you can do either an image from your computer or your phone. Or you can do, like I was saying earlier, you could also do text, but they only have I think they have like 9 or 12 options for text, but you can bold it and italicize it and things like that. But once you've saved your design, your page actually changes. The listing shows your design on the shirt, and it's got like centering tools and all that stuff that you would expect from a custom upload. And then boom, there's a Print on Demand Cast t-shirt in white for $14.99 on a not so great t-shirt. I mean, it's not bad. It's probably still a ring spun, something similar to like a Gildan 64,000. But I think the real question, Josiah, is why would you buy it on Amazon when you can go to printondemandcast.com/shop and get the exact same shirt from your favorite podcasters?
That was awesome.
It's very true. It's very true. You're not feeding the machine this route.
You're feeding my children.
Yes. Yeah. See, it's a much more noble cause when you do that. But talk about a wild kind of leap in print on demand or merch on demand by Amazon specifically.
Yeah.
And this means it's just a matter of time before we see this on other items that they're going to start offering, whether it's mugs or pop sockets or phone cases or whatever. But I feel like this is kind of like opening the floodgates a little bit, and we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, it's here we are. There goes the neighborhood indeed. So with that being said, we're going to move on to this week. Like we said at the top, the question that we have for you in the checklist, we're going to give you in order to decide where you fall in this week's main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, the main event.
And the question is, do you have a POD hobby or a POD business? That's the question we're asking. And I guess at the outset, Travis, we probably establish that there's nothing wrong with doing it as a hobby. It doesn't have to be a business necessarily. It can completely be a hobby. But if you're telling people that you do have a business and it's actually a hobby in reality, it's good to know what the difference is so you know where you stand. So if you are wanting to make it a business, and after this checklist you realize, oh, this is actually a hobby, then you know what shifts you need to make accordingly. Or if you're okay with it being a hobby, that's awesome. But Travis, even in your own POD journey, talk about this for you, from going from hobby to an actual legit business, and what was that like for you in that process?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I didn't really start seeing an income until I started treating the POD part as a business and not just a side hustle. So when I started, it was kind of on the side, and you've heard me tell the story. We were sublimating coffee mugs in our basement. We were creating listings, and we were, doing things. We were building more and more listings, but I started seeing some actual results. And so I really started to change my focus, and eventually the print on demand side just became the entire focus. And I stopped all the other things because I considered those distractions. And so, I mean, you could be in different phases here, of building your business, but I feel like this whole, from hobby to business checklist that we're going to be talking about is potentially going to be a wake-up call for some, because I do think there's a lot of people out there that are saying, yeah, I started my business, my print on demand business, but they're not treating it like one yet. And so I just want to it's kind of an encouragement. It's also maybe like we're saying, it might be a little bit of a kick in the butt to really kind of examine where you're at in the whole print on demand space. And again, there's nothing wrong. If you want to have a hobby and just kind of do this on the side and you're okay with that, then it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily matter. I still think you could still take some of these things to heart and probably improve on your hobby and maybe make a little bit more money and make it a little bit more fun. But ultimately, if you want to have a print on demand business, there are some things that you may need to change. And so that's what we really wanted to talk about today, and wanted to kind of give you some things to think about. And so, you just want to see which boxes on this list that you're actually checking, and which boxes you may want to consider starting to check. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. So on these, would you say, are these in any particular order, or are these just kind of
I don't know that they're necessarily. Yeah, it's more stream of consciousness, I think. Yeah.
All right. So the first one we're going to talk about is just setting specific hours to work on your POD business. Now, I understand if this is just starting, you probably have another full-time job. Maybe you've got employees, you maybe have a family. There's lots of other things that are on the periphery here that are a factor and are putting demands on your time. But if you do want to move this from hobby to a business, the question you have to ask yourself is, how badly do you want to move from one category to another? And if you can't check this box, then you probably are in hobby mode still, because the idea of just doing it when you have some time doesn't necessarily work when you're trying to be intentional about building something, even if it's from the small beginning.
Yeah, I think, that's really the key here is like, if you're just working on it when you have time, that's what you do with hobbies. When I have time, I play guitar, it's my hobby, or, or something like that. It's something on the side. But when you are transitioning into a business, you need to be intentional. That's the $1 million word on this whole episode is being intentional about this thing. That's what transforms a hobby into a business. And by being intentional, we're specifically talking about setting hours. Get your calendar and like go, okay, on Thursday evenings from 7 to 10, after dinner's done, that's my time. I'm going to start there. And for 3 hours every week, come hell or high water, I'm going to work on this thing. I'm going to tell my family, hey, I'm going to be a little busier for a while with this thing.
Yeah.
And maybe it starts on a Thursday night. And then you also need to do a Tuesday night. You know what? Put down the remote and stop. You might have to sacrifice, your favorite show to get this thing off the ground and really into a place where it will actually eventually potentially set your time free. But in the beginning, it won't. You have to be intentional. So what does that mean to you? It might just be an hour a week. That's fine. It might be, a few hours on Saturday or Sunday or something like that. But don't just do it when you quote unquote have the time, because that indicates that you have a hobby and you don't have a business. So I know that might sound harsh, but I think it's logical. I think you get it, and I think you're understanding what we're talking about here. Maybe if you're further down the road, you can have a little bit more freedom in that, and maybe not spend as much time or change the time that you're going to do it. But the bottom line is, you need specific times to work on your business, or it's just a hobby. That's the frank truth of the whole thing.
Yeah. The next one would be to start setting weekly upload benchmarks. And we've talked about this before in the show about just kind of setting what that looks like and what you want to accomplish on a weekly basis in terms of designs uploaded. But this has to be a priority as well, because you have to be intentional about it, because otherwise you'll just let it slick. That's not the phrase.
No.
True international effort to pressure.
So it's the same thing of, well, I'll upload when I have some time. That always kind of gets pushed back. If that's the qualifier, or if that's the category that things fall under, take it from me, those things usually will find their way to the furthest of back burners in terms of your priority. So you have to figure out what that looks like for you, because that's how you make sales. You're not going to sell anything if things aren't uploaded. So if you only have one or two things uploaded and you're wondering why you're not firing any sales or there's no real progress, it's because at a certain level, Travis, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is a volume game, so you're gonna want those uploads done, and you're gonna want to set those goals to make sure we're reaching those benchmarks.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's you can have progress or you can have excuses, and that's a harsh reality of any business startup. And that's really what we're talking about here. You have a startup business. And so if you're not taking it serious, you're not setting the time to do the things that you need to do in order to move your business forward. It's not a business by definition. It's a hobby. And so, I think also there are benefits in the algorithm, particularly on Etsy, and we have talked about this ad nauseum. There was a show we did. I don't know. There's a lot of shows we've done, and we talk specifically about how the Etsy algorithm in particular loves listings. It loves it when you're working on your store, and it loves consistently adding listings. And so there's a boost that you'll just naturally get in the algorithm when you are consistent with your uploads. And so if you do 5 this week, and then you don't do any, and then you do 2, and then you don't do any for a couple weeks, and then you do 10, and that there's not any consistency there. I would, and we talked about this, I would recommend launching with 50 to 100 listings right off the bat. If you haven't started yet, like put them all in draft mode, wait and get them all done. And then have a plan with your whole weekly thing to have a certain number of listings you are going to upload every single week. It comes back to that scheduling time to have, scheduling time to work on this business, scheduling time to upload, and having a specific number that, you know what, I said I was only going to work from 7 to 10 on Thursday, but I only have 3 listings and I said I'd do 5 every week. So I'm going to spend the time to get my other 2 at another time during the week so I can get my 5 this week. And it's when you make those decisions and you make those sacrifices, that is, again, the telltale sign that you're actually building a business, because those are the types of disciplines that you need to have in order to make this work long term. For sure.
The next one, in conjunction with listing and setting those goals, is you got to be strategic with your listings, which means you have to do some research.
You're gonna learn today.
So, which is to say that you need to do some educated guesses as to what you think is going to sell, or decisions of looking at what's trending. If you're targeting a certain niche, researching keywords and designing to that niche, and posting and using those keywords in the listing, so that you have a calculated risk, as much as you can have a calculated risk in this business, where you know that you're going to invest that time, but you're strategically designing the shirt, the design, you're strategically creating the listing so that eyes will hit it because you're doing your research. Once in a while, I think it's fine to take a flyer maybe on a specific type of design, but at least I would say, what would you say the percentages of listings each week have to have a strategy behind? Would you say that's 85, 90%?
Yeah. I mean, you can always kind of default to that whole 80-20 rule, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but with some other things. But I think, and I agree. I think maybe even going higher than the 80, where you're specifically researching, and it doesn't necessarily, the Everbees and the E-Ranks and of the world, and the, Merch Samurai, or, all of those, Sales Samurai, all of those different tools, they can help. But I think even going further with this, particularly with, with a brand, with trying to build a branded kind of niche site on Etsy, I think you can go outside of what everybody else is doing. If you're dependent on what everybody else is doing, and you're finding it on, E-Rank and these other research tools, you might be too late. Because those people are the ones that have traction. So what can you do that is brand specific, that is new, that is fresh, that is maybe not even in the market? What types of fonts, what types of colors? And you can get this just by being a human in society. You can go to the mall and look and see what colors are in, what are the new colors this spring, or whatever. And what fonts are being used, oh man, I'm going to do a whole bunch of wavy text shirts. Well, wavy text has been out for quite a while now. I bet if you started a shop with wavy text, you're probably not going to get very much traction, just because it's not as fresh as when it first came out. Everyone was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this. So I think by depending on these research tools, you can actually do yourself a disservice. I'm not discounting them. I think that they do have a place, and I think they can help you in a lot of different ways. But going beyond that, I think, is equally as important when you are building your brand, when you're in that building mode and you're establishing your new store, your Shopify store, your Amazon store, whatever it is. I think going outside of the kind of the usual suspects when it comes to research tools and research methodologies, I guess, is probably going to help you. And that's the beauty of print on demand. None of these things actually exist until they sell. And so you can drop your line in the water with a new type of design or a new font or a new product even. And if it takes off, you're going to have a winner, and it's going to feel really good. I promise.
Yeah. It's kind of like the research tools will help you. The traditional ones that Travis is talking about can help you join the party, but look for other ways to start the party that others join. To Travis's point, you don't want to just hop on a trend that's gaining traction because other people have close to or already saturated it, but figure out ways to come out with that something different. Maybe you're not seeing on any sites, but you see it at a clothing store, a mall, or whatever, and start tying those type of things in. So, because you see some stores online that have no cohesion in their designs either, which is another kind of kiss of death, especially on Etsy and Shopify. Because again, if you're trying to like drill down, I think I remember seeing a store. I don't know if it's an Etsy store. I think it was, that was really niche down to like dogs, right? Like pets and specifically dogs, and and then they would come out with some like Happy Mother's Day stuff or topical stuff that had nothing to do. It wasn't like Paw Mom or, my fur babies or whatever. Yeah. There's nothing even like tangentially tying to what the core of the store is, but you would just scroll and see this smattering of like attempts to capitalize on pop culture and hit things, but it's completely outside of their niche.
Yeah. Like a Taylor Swift Eras shirt or something,
it's like, I understand the desire, but maybe have two stores. Maybe have your niched and then your one that's just a spray and pray collection of things that you're hoping will just sell, So, but when you do that, it gets real confusing to your core audience. And we've talked about that avatar. Who's the avatar? Who are you trying to really sell to? And when you do stuff like that, it just really muddies the water.
Yeah. The bottom line, you just have to be strategic with these listings. If you're going to spend the time and, say, hey, I'm going to make it a priority to do X number of listings every week, let's be strategic about it and not just throw up whatever. If you have the bandwidth to do that, like you said, Josiah, have another store that is kind of a spray and pray and maybe a topical type thing, and you're just going after trends and maybe that's a whole nother thing. It's a side project to your main brand. But when you're trying to build a brand, on Shopify, and people come to your store and they see, the Mother's Day selection, and then they see the football collection, and then they see the dogs, or the whatever. It doesn't make sense. And in order to sell something, you have to have somebody know, like, and trust you. And and you're already at a disadvantage if you're just throwing up, Facebook ads and trying to get people to come to your site. They don't know you. And now you're showing all of these different things. It's really hard to trust you now, because I don't even know who this is for. I don't understand it. And so you're just really shooting yourself in the foot by being so fragmented. So be strategic with your listings. If you're going to spend the time on them, makes sense to have a plan for that research. Yes, take chances, but keep it in your core demographic. Who is your avatar? Who are you targeting? Make sure that person is the person that would want to buy that product, not, the football lover or the son of the mom or the daughter of the dad, or it gets convoluted really quickly.
Yeah. Absolutely. So after all of this marketing I just buried the lead. So after all this,
killing me, Smalls.
I have 1 week off and this happens. So after all talking about all this listing stuff, we want to talk about how are you getting people to these listings by implementing a marketing plan. And you have to have a marketing plan. So you have to market your store and or your listings. That could look like, pay-per-click advertisement on the site itself. It could look like social media posts on your Instagram or your Facebook. I know, Instagram seems to be kind of the best place for these types of marketing. Yeah. Facebook. I haven't heard a lot of success stories about.
Well, now that they're combined, you're getting kind of the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, that's true. I know for me in my scrolling, I get a lot of ads for T-shirt sites and clothing sites on my Instagram, and I'll click in and see what's there. So Instagram seems to be effective. But nonetheless, you have to have a strategy for that, and it has to be a weekly strategy. We've talked about I might post something that doesn't always work. Because I might usually get pushed aside. We've talked about that.
Yeah. What happens? I mean, think about asking, a girl out for a date and she says, well, I might go. No, that means no.
Yeah,
she's not
that's
going
sad.
to show up. This is not going to happen. So if you're saying I might post something this week, I might throw some Instagram posts out there, that means no, you won't do it because something's going to come up and, there's going to be another fire. It's got to be part of that weekly plan,
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And so we want to give you some advice when it comes to some social media strategies. Comment on other posts. This is something I learned from a friend of mine a while ago in like 2017 or so, but just commenting on people's posts. They don't have to follow you. It could just be within your niche. Search a hashtag that's relevant to your niche and just start commenting, interacting. People get to see your name all the time in the comment sections, or they're interacting with you and you're liking comments. They're liking your comments. Eventually, they're going to say, who is this guy or person? They'll click on it, see what you're doing on your actual page. But it's a way to get involved, to build relational equity, to build trust outside of trying to sell them something. And so that's always a really good way to gain some traction just in, kind of getting our followers in an organic way. We're just interacting with them instead of having a paid ad scroll by them. And Travis talked about the 80-20 rule. Do you want to unpack that a little bit more? Because we talked about using that in terms of listings that are based on research and are not. But when it comes to social media and marketing, what does that 80-20 rule mean?
Man, I'll tell you what, I've followed so many people, or people follow us, that are designers, or they have a T-shirt shop or whatever. And every single post is buy my shirt, look at this shirt, look at this shirt, look at this shirt. I don't care about your shirt, bro. And I think the 80-20 rule really kind of comes into play when you're talking about sales posts versus just value added posts. And so 80% of your posts should be value added. And we had, who was it that said, nobody wants to follow a commercial? Will, way back. And I still use that today because that's true. Nobody wants to follow a commercial. They want to have something for them, and that should be your aim with 80% of your social media. It should be value add. You can do, top 3 mistakes in your niche, or top 3 tips, or, do a carousel, do a reel, do a funny thing, just a goofy, you don't have to always post, your shirt or your mug or your whatever, or your latest design. It really does need to be more of an 80-20 thing, so, and I think you can use that 80-20 thing in pretty much every part of your business. Focus on 80% or 20% of your attempts at like building this brand or this business are going to get 80% of the results. And so flip that on its head and don't spend all of your time just trying to sell people, because remember, it's know, like, and trust. And if I don't trust commercials, you just can't. And I don't like them either. So you need to add value to people's lives before, so they can like you, so they can trust you. And then all of a sudden, that 20% of the time when you post something, it's like, you know what? I like this guy. I like this gal. I'm going to check out their stuff and maybe even support them. So it just makes logical sense, especially in today's marketing world. So use those top 3 carousel posts, or, whatever that thing is that serves your niche, and it will pay dividends.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, if you scroll through our podcast feed in the math, oh my God, why can't I talk today? I spent my whole morning talking, and I think I've spent all my talking points.
True international effort to pressure.
Wow. Okay. So if you scroll in our podcast feed over the last couple of months, you'll notice even in our titles, it's 8 tips, 4 tips, 3 tips for Etsy, 3 things to avoid, 5 things, 5 mistakes, because that helps the listener, the reader, almost manage their expectation. Like, okay, when I click into this, I know that I can expect to receive 3 tips or 3 things to avoid, as opposed to how to avoid the big mistakes or being very vague. It gives them something to know, like, okay, I'm going to go into this knowing what I'm looking for. And so they're more prone to click in because you've kind of helped manage. They don't have to do as much scrolling to find out what they need to find. There's going to be 3 mistakes. They're going to read and find out. So the next thing that you want to do, or you should be doing, is building an email list. Travis, do you want to tell us about ConvertKit and how that can help? That sounds like a tee up for a commercial. Don't mute, don't fast forward. It's not an ad. I'm just asking a question.
Well, first of all, you are able to build an email list even on Etsy, believe it or not. So of course, if you have a Shopify store, you should be trying to collect data, because Shopify store by default should be more niched down, it should be more niched down to a specific type of person or your avatar. And so you want to collect those emails because you can constantly market to those people for free once you have their email. And so ConvertKit is an email software. It collects emails and it allows you to email those people. And we do have an affiliate link. It's printondemandcast.com/ConvertKit. But the cool thing about ConvertKit is that it has a free plan until you get to 1,000 subscribers. So that could take a while. Now, you don't have all the bells and whistles that you do if you actually pay for it, but for most people, that's going to help, or that's going to be enough for quite a while, because you still can email those people. And if you have your time that you're going to work on this business every week, you can send them an email every week. Again, use the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we're adding value. And then maybe 20% of the time we're saying, hey, I just put up a new shirt. I think you might like it, that type of thing. So check out printondemandcast.com/ConvertKit. It's relatively easy to use. That's what we use for our email list at printondemandcast.com/VIP. If you want to get on that list, if you're not on it already. If you are going to do that, you'll want to provide the people that you want to subscribe with something. They call it an email magnet or a lead magnet. And so what you're doing is you're providing them, maybe it's a discount code for 20% off their next purchase, or, I would go as far as to say is like 30 or 40% off, take it down to where you're not making anything on that next sale, but you're getting their email for free. That's crazy, And so you're giving them something, so they'll give you something. And then you have the ability, again, to market to them, for as long as they say subscribed, and if you do the 80-20 rule, you can nurture that relationship, know, like, and trust. So eventually maybe they'll come back and buy something from you again at full price. I mean, that's the whole goal, right? So what are your goals with your business? If your goal is to have a business, you need an email list. You've heard, if you've been in internet marketing at all, you've heard the money is in the list. And it's true. It's 100% true. If you want to have a business that's valuable maybe you want to sell it someday, an email list is going to make it more valuable, because you have, again, the ability to market for free. And that's huge for any business.
Absolutely. It's in the list. People are going to ask about a book of business. Obviously, when you're trying to sell a business, and to Travis's point, that email list is going to be equally as valuable to them, because it's potential, or they can reach more people directly, because you've already collected that for them. So the next thing when moving from hobby to business is you need to be willing to invest. That can look like investing in.
This is sticky, for people. They're like, oh, well, I had, my money hasn't, or my business hasn't made any money, or my hobby hasn't made any money yet.
Yeah.
But in the in the end, it's an investment. It's actually, you're putting money in to get a return. And if you're not going to be willing to invest any money in it, yes, you can build something with just time, But what if you put a little bit of money into this? What if you started investing in some of these tools? What if you invested in some coaching? What if you invested in some designers, a virtual assistant to help you do some of this stuff? What return could you get on that investment? And I think that's really kind of what we're talking about with this particular point, because it can be scary.
Right.
You're starting up. You haven't made any money. The whole reason to do this business is to make money. My Facebook ads for my Shopify site that I'm promoting for Father's Day, I've spent a lot of money on it, and I haven't gotten very many sales yet. I'm still in the red, but it's an investment.
Yeah.
And I believe, because of because what I've learned in the past, that as we get closer to Father's Day, those sales are going to pick up. And so I'm willing to invest that money for the possible return on that investment.
Right.
And that's what a business does.
Yep.
So are you a hobby? Is it a hobby or is it a business?
Yeah, it's good if you're a cheap bastard.
If you're offended by that joke, I completely agree.
All right. So, it's that whole, it takes money to make money. Unfortunately, you do have to invest. There's kind of that give and take and there. So you don't want to wait till you have the time and the money, because that time might not ever come, but that investment, that initial sacrifice, that the thing that it costs you something, it could pay off massive dividends. It's an investment in your business. It's startup cost. That's what they're called, startup costs.
Yeah.
So, and again, this can get sticky. People don't like talking about it,
right?
Because it's financial investment. But at a certain point, you have to kind of figure out, if you're not going to fund it, if you're not going to invest in it, and you have dreams of it going here, well, the reality is it might not get there until you're willing to invest. So that's just how that happens sometimes. So the next one is going to be basic business best practices. So what's that look like, Travis?
A lot about this.
Yeah. So we've talked about this in Print on Demand 101. And talked about kind of the deep dive into that. But when we're talking basics, what does that look like? What do they need to kind of take into account, Travis, when thinking about the basics of business practices?
Yeah, I talked about it. I did a solo episode. I'm trying to find the number. Episode 178. I really kind of go into listen to this before you sell anything. And it's kind of clickbaity title, but the idea is like putting some of these business best practices into your business. And we've talked about it a lot of times. Do you have a bank account for your business? Well, I mean, it's called a business banking account for a reason. If you're just throwing everything from your, if you're just doing everything from your personal account, well, is it a hobby or is it a business? And that's fine to start out that way. But at some point, we need to turn this into a business. And so let's get a business bank account. Let's decide on a business entity. Maybe at first it's totally fine to be a sole proprietor. But if you listen to last week's episode with Adam, we talked about, once you hit kind of that $40,000 to $50,000 a year mark in revenue, then maybe it's time to potentially consider doing an S corp. Again, I'm not a tax advisor. Please talk to your CPA or your tax professional, because that's not me. But consider that. You need to decide on that. And then once you have decided, and you need to get your EIN, an EIN number, no matter what you're doing, because then you can get a reseller license, which will allow you to buy supplies tax free, and so there's, it all kind of builds on each other. Again, it's a business. And so, maybe you need a credit card, there's all kinds of cool things you can do with credit cards and credit card points and the whole 9 yards. You can really, for I don't know how many years now, my wife has had the companion pass on Southwest, and in Denver, that's a hub of Southwest. So we can pretty much fly anywhere for the price of one, because she gets to come for free. And that's because of credit card points. Credit cards can scare people, and that's fine if you just want to do it all with a debit, but have that debit coming from your business bank account, not your personal, and then file your freaking taxes, if you have a separate entity, well, make sure that you got good books and, you're actually showing, what your sales are and what your expenses are, and then actually file those taxes. Don't try to cheat out the IRS, because that never works well. I think Josiah's on a call, so I'm going to keep going. And the last point really here that we wanted to talk about, it's not a point really, it's just more of a summary of what we've been talking about. So let me just go through the 7 we talked about first, and then I'll summarize. But the first one was to set specific hours to work on your print-on-demand business. The next one was start setting weekly upload benchmarks. Then the next one was be strategic with your listings. And then the next one was have a marketing plan, whether that's paid advertising or social media, whatever. Have a marketing plan, have a strategy behind it. The next one was you should be building an email list. Then number 6, you need to be willing to invest, be that in tools, be that in coaching, be that in, a course or designs or virtual assistants or help in any way. The next one is just the basic business best practices, bank accounts and business entity, all that stuff. So in summary, really, what you need to do is you need to map out your week. Okay. And then you take it a step back and you map out your days, and then you map out the hours. And it might just be one day for 1 hour. That's fine. But maybe you have a little bit more time to spend, and actually split that time up into each of these sections. So you choose your specific hours that you're going to work in the week, and then you decide how many listings you're going to get done during that week at what time. Are you going to spend 1 hour on listings? Are you going to spend 3 hours on listings? It doesn't have to take 3 hours to do 5 or 10 listings either. If you can create templates, there's a lot of things that you can do to speed that process up. How much time are you going to allot to research? And what does that research look like? Are you specifically, using a tool? That's totally fine. Maybe it's an hour on a tool. Maybe it's an hour at the mall. I don't know. But every week you're doing something that has to do with researching designs, trends, fonts, colors, all of those things for your brand. And then your weekly marketing schedule needs to have a place in that schedule. What are you going to set up new ads for your products on, your Etsy ads, or you're going to do a sale on Etsy, or sponsored ads on Amazon, et cetera, Facebook ads, if you're doing a Shopify or Instagram ads. And then of course, social media, that it comes into play with your marketing, and building out those 3 tips for 3 mistakes or whatever, or 5 mistakes, whatever that thing is, building those social media assets out. And then that last piece that you need to begin thinking about is, how are you going to nurture that email list that you're creating? What are you going to send to them? What's the topic of this week's email? Don't just, sure, if you need to, start with once a month. But I guarantee people aren't going to remember you if you just do it once a month. I would highly recommend that you eventually come to a place where you're doing it every week, and you have something. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be a couple hundred words. It could just be something that you learned about your niche. You could Google something and then rephrase it and put it into your email that's topical, that can help people. And then again, use that 80-20 rule to only sell to them 20% of the time. Don't even include a link to your store if you don't, occasionally, or 80% of the time. And then that 20% of the time, you're like, check this out. This is the coolest thing. I just dropped it. It's an amazing new, shirt that I know you're going to love. It's so cool. Again, know, like, and trust, and get them to like you and trust you, and know you by sending it every week. And then you might get that click and you might get that sale. So map out your week, map out your days, map it out down to the hour, and know in this hour, I'm going to be working on this particular thing. In this hour, I'm going to be working on this particular thing. And then hold yourself accountable. Tell your significant other or your mom or your dad or whoever, tell your kids, who cares? Tell a friend, this is my plan. I'm going to be working on this at this specific time every single week. So, if you start treating this like a business and get out of hobby mode, you're way more likely to see results. I hear so many people talk about, well, I'm doing this and I'm not seeing the results that I want. And I really, really want to challenge you. Do you have a business or do you have a hobby? Again, it's fine if you want a hobby, but if you want to make this a business, there are things that you're going to have to do. And it starts with being strategic with your time and your efforts during that time and being disciplined to get all that stuff done. I think Josiah is still on the phone. So let's see here. What should I do? What do you think I should do, guys? I don't know. I guess we'll just, I guess we can just kind of sign off, I guess, for Josiah. I'm Travis, and we'll see you next week on the Print on Demand cast. See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.